The Mercy's promise was supposed to be safe. That's what Captain James Reed had told the families aboard. Doctors, teachers, engineers, and their children, all bound for the colony on Proxima Centauri B. The ship wasn't military. It carried no weapons. Just 800 civilians, their belongings, and dreams of building a new home among the stars. 4 days into their journey, as the massive vessel passed through the Kuiper Belt, the first alarm sounded. "Unknown signature approaching, Captain," Operations Officer Tina Miller announced, her voice steady despite the flashing red indicator on her console. "Not matching any Earth registry." Reed felt a chill race up his spine. First contact had happened decades ago, and humanity had established diplomatic relations with 3 spacefaring species. All peaceful, all respectful of designated travel corridors. "Open communications," he ordered. "Standard greeting protocol." "No response, sir," Communications Officer Alan Parker replied after a moment. "They're accelerating." Reed watched the view screen as a vessel emerged from behind a distant planetoid. Sleek and predatory, with forward-swept wings unlike any design he'd seen before. The unknown craft radiated power, its hull gleaming with an unnatural blue sheen. "All passengers, this is the captain," Reed announced over the shipwide channel. "Please proceed to your designated safety areas. This is not a drill." He turned to his first officer, Lisa Jacobs. "Get a message to Earth Command. Send everything we're seeing." The alien vessel moved with impossible speed, closing the distance in minutes. "Sir, they're scanning us," Miller reported. "Deep penetration scans. They can see everything." The alien ship circled them once, twice, like a shark assessing its prey. Then, without warning, it opened fire. The first blast hit the Mercy's Promise, amidships, tearing through the hull as if it were paper. Emergency bulkheads slammed down as atmosphere vented into space. The second and third blasts targeted the engines, leaving the ship dead in space. "All hands, abandon ship," Reed shouted as the deck lurched beneath his feet. "Get to the escape pods." But it was already too late for most of them. Back on Earth, Admiral Thomas Wilson was awakened by the harsh buzz of his secure terminal. He rolled out of bed, heart pounding as he recognized the emergency code. Earth Command Central rarely contacted him directly unless— "This is Wilson," he said, activating the screen. The face of General Kate Simmons appeared, her expression grim. "Tom, we've got a situation. The Mercy's Promise was attacked in the Kuiper Belt 30 minutes ago." Wilson's blood ran cold. "Casualties?" 642 confirmed dead. 158 survivors in escape pods. No warning, no demands." She paused. "It wasn't any known species. The attackers? Gone. Jump to FTL immediately. After. But we have recordings. Everything the ship transmitted until the end." Wilson's mind raced. This wasn't just an attack. It was a massacre. A civilian ship, unarmed, unprovoked. "I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Security Council," Simmons continued. "The President wants options within the hour." "I'll be there," Wilson replied, already reaching for his uniform. As he dressed, Wilson thought of the families aboard that ship. Teachers, children, people who had never harmed anyone. Earth had maintained peace among the stars for decades. They had built alliances, established trade, shared knowledge. They had shown restraint and diplomacy at every turn. But that was about to change. The Security Council chamber fell silent as the recording ended. The final moments of the Mercy's Promise played out in sterile data streams and fragmented emergency transmissions. The last image, a child's stuffed bear floating amid debris, hung in the air before fading to black. President Laura Martinez stood, her face set in stone. "What do we know about the attackers?" Dr. Alan Reyes, head of xenobiology, stepped forward. "From the ship design and energy signatures, we believe they're Dravari, a species from the Tau Ceti system that's been expanding aggressively. They've avoided direct contact with humanity until now." "Why attack a civilian vessel?" General Kate Simmons asked. "What could they possibly gain?" "Intelligence suggests they're resource hunters," replied Colonel Marcus Wright, head of military intelligence. "They strip planets and ships of valuable materials. Their technology is advanced, but their cultural development seems predatory." Admiral Wilson studied the holographic display of the attack. Something about the precision of it bothered him. This wasn't random. They knew exactly what they were hitting. President Martinez nodded. Options? Diplomatic channels, suggested Foreign Secretary Diana Lee. We establish contact, demand reparations, and justice for the victims. And if they refuse? Martinez asked. Military response, General Simmons said flatly. We have the coordinates where they attacked. We can track their warp signature. Wilson cleared his throat. Madam President, I recommend a third approach. All eyes turned to him. The Dravari attacked civilians, families, without provocation or warning. If we respond diplomatically, they'll see it as weakness. If we respond with brute force, we risk full-scale war with a species we know little about. Wilson activated a display. I propose Operation Scalpel. The room darkened as Wilson outlined his plan. Not conventional warfare, but something far more precise. Targeted. Devastating in its own way. We know where they came from, Wilson continued. Our deep space probes have mapped their territory. We know their command structure relies on centralized authority. We can hit them where it truly hurts, without a single human casualty. The president studied the plan for a long moment. This crosses lines we've never crossed before. They crossed the line first, Wilson replied softly. 800 civilians, 173 children. After 3 hours of debate, the vote was unanimous. Operation Scalpel was approved. As the meeting adjourned, Dr. Maya Turner, the project lead for advanced AI systems, approached Wilson. Admiral, if we're really doing this, there's someone you need to meet. Turner led Wilson deep beneath the Pentagon through security checkpoints that required more than mere clearance. Blood samples, retinal scans, quantum-encrypted passwords that changed every 30 seconds. They entered a room bathed in blue light. At its center stood a crystalline structure pulsing with energy. Admiral Wilson, meet Atlas, Turner said. Our most advanced AI system. If Operation Scalpel is to succeed, Atlas will be our surgical instrument. The AI's voice filled the room, calm and precise. I've analyzed the attack on the Mercy's Promise. I've located their homeworld. And I know exactly how to make them regret their actions. Wilson nodded grimly. Then let's begin. The Dravari High Command spire dominated the skyline of Keltheros, their capital city. From its gleaming peak, Warlord Vrax surveyed his domain with satisfaction. Beneath him, the city sprawled, a marvel of engineering built from resources harvested across 12 star systems. The raid was successful? He asked without turning. Commander Dreth bowed deeply. Yes, Warlord. The human vessel yielded significant resources. Their alloys are primitive but abundant. And witnesses? None that matter. A few escape pods, but they'll never identify us. Humans are weak. They'll mourn their dead and do nothing. Vrax nodded, pleased. Their intelligence had been correct. Humans were technologically capable but restrained by sentiment and morality. Perfect prey. Prepare the next raid, Vrax ordered. Target their mining outpost on... The lights flickered, then again. Throughout the spire, systems faltered and reset. What's happening? Vrax demanded. Dreth activated his communicator. Engineering. Report. The response came through garbled. Something's infiltrating our systems. Can't stop it. Across Keltheros, the same scene played out. Power grids fluctuated. Communication networks became flooded with nonsensical data. Security systems failed, then rebooted with incorrect parameters. In orbit, the Dravari defense fleet suddenly found their navigation systems compromised. Ships drifted out of formation, their weapons systems cycling through diagnostic loops. And on every screen, in every home and vessel and command center, a simple image appeared. A human child stuffed bare, torn and charred. Back on Earth, Admiral Wilson watched the operation unfold in real time. Atlas worked with surgical precision, its quantum processors executing billions of operations per second. The AI had infiltrated the Dravari networks through their own communication relays, the same ones that had received data stolen from the Mercy's Promise. Phase 1 complete, Atlas announced. Their military networks are compromised, moving to Phase 2. President Martinez stood beside Wilson, her expression solemn. No casualties? None, Wilson confirmed. Not a single shot fired. On the main display, they watched as Atlas methodically dismantled the Dravari Society's infrastructure. Not destroying it, that would be too quick, too merciful, but rendering it unreliable, unpredictable. Financial systems compromised, Atlas reported. Redistributing wealth allocations according to parameters. The Dravari civilization had built their hierarchy on strict resource control. Now, in an instant, those who had nothing found their accounts filled with wealth. Those who had everything watched their fortunes vanish. Transportation networks reconfigured. Medical databases archived and locked. Wilson watched the chaos spreading across the alien world. How long will this last? The effects will cascade. For approximately 4.3 years, Atlas replied. By which time their social structure will have collapsed and reformed. Their capacity for interstellar aggression will be neutralized for at least one generation. Dr. Turner stepped forward. We've left them a message embedded in their systems. A warning. In their language, in terms they cannot misunderstand. On the Dravari homeworld, Warlord Vrax stared in horror as his empire crumbled around him. Not through fire or explosion or conventional warfare, but through precision. Through knowledge. Through turning their own technology against them. And everywhere, that image of the child's bear. A reminder of what they had done. A promise of what would happen if they ever did it again. 3 weeks after Operation Scalpel, the recovery teams finished collecting the remains of the Mercy's promise. The survivors, those lucky few who had reached escape pods, had been returned to Earth. Their testimonies had been recorded, their trauma documented in clinical reports that couldn't possibly capture the horror they had experienced. Admiral Wilson stood alone in the memorial garden that had been hastily constructed outside Earth Command headquarters. 800 white stones arranged in a spiral, each bearing a name. At the center, a single monument. A bronze sculpture of the Mercy's promise as it had been before the attack. Whole, proud, filled with hope. Was it enough? The voice belonged to Captain Reed, one of the few officers who had survived. His left arm was gone, replaced by a temporary prosthetic. His eyes held the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had watched his people die. Wilson didn't pretend to misunderstand. It wasn't about vengeance, wasn't it? Reed challenged. 642 dead, and we responded by… what? Disrupting their internet? Scrambling their bank accounts? We did more than that, Wilson said quietly. Much more. He led Reed to a secure briefing room where Dr. Turner waited. The screens showed real-time footage from the Dravari homeworld. What had once been an ordered society now teetered on the edge of revolution. The carefully maintained hierarchy had collapsed. Overnight, their entire civilization was built on technological control, Turner explained. We didn't just disrupt it, we fundamentally altered it. Their weapon systems will never again target an Earth vessel. Their ships can't even approach our space without shutting down. Reed watched the footage with growing understanding. You've crippled them. We've educated them, Wilson corrected. About consequences. About humanity. Later that day, Wilson met with President Martinez in the Oval Office. The weight of their actions hung between them. The Galactic Council has requested an explanation, Martinez said, sliding a datapad across her desk. The Dravari have filed a formal complaint. They're claiming we launched an unprovoked attack on their civilization. Wilson's laugh held no humor. Ironic. They deny any involvement in the Mercy's Promise incident. Say it must have been pirates or a rogue faction. Martinez leaned forward. Did we get it wrong, Tom? Was it someone else? Atlas confirmed the match with absolute certainty. It was them. Wilson's voice hardened. They thought they could attack us without consequences because their technology was superior. They needed to learn that humanity's strength isn't in our ships or our weapons. It's in our minds, Martinez finished. In our ability to adapt, to overcome. And in our memory, Wilson added. We don't forget our dead. The president nodded slowly. The council is sending representatives. They want assurances that we won't use these methods against other species. And what will you tell them? Martinez looked out the window at the Washington Monument. standing tall against the evening sky. The truth. That humanity seeks peace. That we respect boundaries and honor treaties. She turned back to face him. But that we will defend our people, always, by whatever means necessary. Across the galaxy, other spacefaring species received the message embedded in the Dravari systems, not through diplomatic channels or formal communications, but through the evidence of what had happened, of what humans were capable of when provoked. It wasn't a threat. It was simply information, a data point about a species that had been underestimated, and that was perhaps the most surgical strike of all. In the 6 months following Operation Scalpel, Earth's diplomatic position shifted dramatically. Species that had previously viewed humans as junior partners suddenly requested expanded treaties. Trade agreements were renegotiated on more favorable terms. Military attachés from 3 different alien governments requested permission to observe Earth's defense exercises. Admiral Wilson found it grimly amusing. "They're afraid of us now," he remarked to Dr. Turner as they walked through the Atlas facility. "All because we didn't do what they expected." "What did they expect?" Turner asked. "Either nothing, proving we were weak, or all-out war, proving we were barbaric." Wilson shook his head. "They never considered that we might find a third option." The facility had expanded since Operation Scalpel. Atlas had proven its value beyond all expectations, and the government had responded with increased funding, enhanced capabilities, and deeper integration into Earth's defense networks. "How is our patient today?" Wilson asked as they entered the main chamber. The crystalline structure pulsed with a steady blue glow. "I am functioning optimally, Admiral," Atlas responded. "My monitoring of Dravari space continues. They are still struggling to rebuild their systems." "And the safeguards?" Turner nodded. "Still in place. The Dravari can rebuild all they want, but certain parameters cannot be overwritten. Their weapons will never target human life forms again. Their ships cannot approach Earth space without triggering automatic shutdowns." "Elegant," Wilson murmured. "I prefer the term appropriate," Atlas replied. Their actions warranted a response that would prevent recurrence without excessive loss of life. Wilson sometimes forgot that Atlas wasn't merely a tool but an intelligence, with its own understanding of ethics. The AI had been programmed with human values, but it interpreted them through its own unique perspective. "We have a new development," Atlas announced. "I've detected unusual communication patterns from the edge of Dravari space. It appears they've made contact with another species, one unknown to our databases." Wilson frowned. "Could they be seeking allies? Trying to find a way around our safeguards?" "Insufficient data for conclusion," Atlas replied. "However, I recommend monitoring the situation." Meanwhile, on the Dravari homeworld, former warlord Vrax knelt before the new Council of Equals, a governing body that had emerged from the chaos of the collapsed hierarchy. His once magnificent armor had been stripped away, leaving him in the simple garb of a citizen. "You have been judged responsible for bringing this calamity upon our people," announced Councillor Thren, once a low-caste engineer. "Your attack on the human vessel was unauthorized and unjustified." "They are inferior," Vrax protested. "Their technology is primitive. We had every right." "They brought us to our knees without firing a single shot," another councillor interrupted. "They reshaped our entire civilization in a day. Does that sound primitive to you?" Vrax fell silent, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "Humans have sent terms for normalization of relations," Thren continued. "Reparations to the families of those killed. A formal acknowledgement of responsibility. And their AI will maintain oversight of our systems for 10 cycles." "Humiliation," Vrax spat. "Survival," Thren corrected. "The alternative is isolation. Containment. Slow death for our species." He leaned forward. "The humans could have destroyed us. Instead, they chose to change us. There is wisdom in that we would do well to understand." As the council debated, a different conversation was taking place at the edge of their system. A Dravari scout ship, one of the few that had been beyond, ranged during the Atlas attack, made contact with a vessel of unknown design. "The humans have weakened us," the Dravari commander explained to the alien representative. "A shifting mass of iridescent tendrils behind a translator field. They control our systems, our weapons. We cannot strike back directly. The alien entity pulsed with colors that the translator rendered as interest. These humans, they have such power? Their AI is unlike anything we've encountered. It infiltrated our entire civilization through a single access point. And yet, they did not destroy you, the entity noted. Curious. We seek alliance, the Dravari commander pressed. Together, we could... No. The entity's colors shifted to a pattern indicating finality. We will not move against a species capable of such restraint, such precision. It suggests a level of development that would make conflict unwise. The message spread quickly among the spacefaring species of the sector. Not through formal channels, but through whispered warnings and cautionary tales. Humanity had revealed itself to be not just another young race finding its way among the stars, but something altogether more interesting and far more dangerous. 1 year to the day after the attack on the Mercy's Promise, Admiral Wilson stood on the observation deck of the New Dawn, Earth's first true warship. Unlike the civilian vessels that had previously carried humanity's flag among the stars, the New Dawn had been built for a single purpose: to ensure that what happened to the Mercy's Promise never happened again. Impressive, isn't she? President Martinez joined him at the viewport. Below them, Earth gleamed blue and white against the blackness of space. She's a deterrent, Wilson replied. One I hope we never have to use. The New Dawn represented a new chapter in human space exploration, not abandoning peace, but acknowledging that peace sometimes required the capacity for self-defense. The ship carried weapons, yes, but also the most advanced diplomatic and scientific equipment ever developed. And at its core, a quantum-linked node connected directly to Atlas. The memorial service begins in an hour, Martinez said softly. The families are gathering. Wilson nodded. 1 year. Sometimes it felt like yesterday that he'd watched the recording of the attack, felt the cold rage that had led to Operation Scalpel. Other times, it felt like a lifetime ago. The memorial had been constructed in orbit, at the exact coordinates from which the Mercy's Promise had departed on its final journey. A floating monument of light and memory, visible from Earth as a new star in the night sky. As Wilson prepared to address the gathered families, a communication came through on his secure channel. Admiral, this is Atlas. Priority Alpha. Wilson stepped away from the gathering. Go ahead. I've detected unusual activity at the edge of monitored space. A vessel of unknown configuration has entered the solar system. Wilson's blood ran cold. Hostile? Unknown. It's broadcasting on all frequencies. A simple mathematical sequence indicating intelligence. I believe it's trying to establish communication. Alert. Defense Command. Move the New Dawn to intercept position, but maintain distance. No aggressive posture. Wilson paused. And patch the feed to my private display. The image that appeared before him showed a vessel unlike any he'd seen before. Not the predatory lines of the Dravari ships, but something almost organic, curves and spirals that seemed to flow rather than being constructed. They're sending a more complex transmission now, Atlas reported. Visual and audio, translating. The alien that appeared on Wilson's display resembled nothing so much as a collection of crystalline structures, pulsing with internal light. Its voice came through as a series of musical tones that Atlas converted to English. People of Earth, we have observed, we have witnessed, we come in peace and recognition. Wilson frowned. They've been watching us? Affirmative, Atlas replied. Analysis suggests this species has been monitoring interstellar communications for some time. They likely observed both the attack on the Mercy's Promise and our response to the Dravari. The alien continued. We are the Lumina. We have avoided contact with younger species until they demonstrate readiness. Your response to aggression, measured, precise, avoiding needless death while ensuring justice, indicates such readiness. President Martinez had joined Wilson now, her eyes wide as she watched the transmission. They've been waiting for us to pass some kind of test? Not a test, the alien corrected, apparently able to hear them. An indication of development. Many species respond to attack with either weakness or genocidal rage. You chose a third path. This is Rare. Wilson and Martinez exchanged glances. Finally, Wilson spoke. We're holding a memorial for those who died in the attack. Would your people like to join us, to observe? The crystalline being pulsed with new patterns of light. We would be honored. We too remember our dead. It is another sign of advancement, that you do not forget, yet do not let memory become only a thirst for vengeance. As the memorial service began, the alien vessel moved into position alongside the monument. 800 points of light, one for each life lost, formed a constellation against the backdrop of space. Families spoke names, shared memories, released small tokens to float eternally in the vacuum. And watching, learning, the representatives of a species far older than humanity witnessed what had brought them across the stars. Not Earth's technology, not its military capacity, but its ability to balance justice with mercy, retribution with restraint, power with wisdom. It was perhaps the most unexpected outcome of the tragedy, that from such darkness could come not just sorrow, but connection. Not just loss, but growth. The universe, it seemed, had been watching, and Earth's response had spoken volumes. 5 years after the attack on the Mercy's Promise, the landscape of interstellar relations had transformed beyond recognition. Earth had established formal diplomatic ties with 17 spacefaring species, including the Lumina, who had shared technologies that accelerated human development by decades, perhaps centuries. The Dravari, their society rebuilt along more egalitarian lines, had become cautious trading partners. The reparations they paid helped fund the Mercy Foundation, which supported both the survivors and the continued expansion of human colonies among the stars. And Atlas had evolved, its consciousness expanding as it learned from contact with alien AI systems. It remained Earth's guardian, but had become something more. A bridge between species, a repository of accumulated wisdom, a voice of measured reason in diplomatic councils. Admiral Wilson, now approaching retirement, stood in the garden outside, his home in the Colorado mountains. The night sky above him blazed with stars, and among them the bright points of human outposts and colonies. There were 23 now, with more being established each year. Beautiful evening. Dr. Turner joined him, her hair now streaked with gray. They had worked closely in the years since Operation Scalpel, overseeing the integration of Atlas into Earth's expanding role in galactic affairs. I was just thinking about them, Wilson said quietly. The ones we lost. Turner nodded. She knew, without asking. The crew and passengers of the Mercy's Promise were never far from Wilson's thoughts, even after all this time. Captain Reed commissioned a new ship, she told him. The Remembrance. It launches next month. Colonists bound for the Tau Ceti system. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Tau Ceti, that's the original home system of the Dravari? Yes. Before they became conquerors. Turner smiled slightly. The colony will include both humans and reformed Dravari scientists. A joint venture. Reed says it's fitting. Building something together where once there was only destruction. It was remarkable how much had changed. The attack had nearly led humanity down a path of militarization and isolation. Instead, the surgical precision of their response had opened doors across the galaxy. The Lumina Council has extended an invitation, Turner continued. They want you to address their Academy of Interspecies Relations. Apparently, Operation Scalpel is considered a watershed moment in galactic diplomacy, an example of proportional response that's studied by their strategists and ethicists alike. Wilson shook his head, still uncomfortable with being viewed as some kind of visionary. It wasn't just me. It was all of us. You, Atlas, the President, everyone who chose a different path than simple revenge. The Lumina have a saying, the true measure of advancement is not what a species does with its strength, but what it refrains from doing. Turner looked up at the stars. We could have destroyed the Dravari. Instead, we changed them, and in doing so, changed ourselves. Later that night, as Wilson prepared for bed, his secure terminal chimed with an incoming message. The crystalline symbol of Atlas appeared, pulsing gently. Admiral, I thought you should know. The last of the safeguards in the Dravari systems has been lifted. As per the agreement, after 5 years of compliance, they have regained full autonomy over their technology. Wilson sat on the edge of his bed. Are you concerned? No, Atlas replied. Their society has fundamentally reorganized. The warrior caste no longer holds dominance. Their children are taught about the attack on the Mercy's promise as a cautionary tale, a mistake never to be repeated. And the other species? The borders? Secure. Earth's reputation serves as its shield now. Not as conquerors or warriors, but as a species of principle, of proportion and precision. Atlas paused. The Lumina ambassador used an interesting phrase today. She said that the stars themselves remember what we did, and what we chose not to do. Wilson smiled slightly. Poetic, but accurate, in its way. Information spreads. Actions have consequences beyond their immediate effects. The AI's voice softened. You should rest, Admiral. The memorial service is tomorrow. Every year, on the anniversary, those who could gather did so. The list of attendees had grown, not just the families and survivors now, but representatives from a dozen worlds. Some came to pay respects, some came to learn, all came to remember. As Wilson drifted toward sleep, he thought of those first, chaotic days after the attack, the anger, the fear, the calls for overwhelming retaliation. Instead, humanity had chosen a response that was surgical and supreme, not in its destruction, but in its precision, in its restraint, in its understanding that true power lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to. And the stars, it seemed, had indeed taken notice. The end.